Pipe in hand, Sholmes looked down at the thick, rolling fog outside our window. I wonder exactly how many mysteries are out there, hidden within this bed of fog, he said. Indeed, a most bizarre incident, born of a curious advertisement. A hellhound's mad gallop through the shadows of a serial murder. An executed man's graveyard resurrection in the dead of night. And a commonplace killing in a small, forgotten room at the edge of town. There is, naturally, always another side to every case, of which most remain ignorant. And it is that other side which compels me to the scene of the crime, Wilson. So quickly now, take your hat and let's be on our way, my dear fellow. For our adventure is not over yet. Come, the game is afoot.
Eight days after that earth-shattering trial and Cosima regaining his memory, we were in the foyer of London's most luxurious hotel, the Great Waterloo Hotel. Professor Mikotoba is due to arrive at any moment. Yes, I'm so glad we got here in time. Susato-san hasn't been the same since what happened. Not that I'm surprised. The truth about Kazuma-sama's father. Do you suppose my father knew? Oh, definitely. That he actually knew the mass murderer, the professor, you mean? I knew that's what she was thinking about. There's a good chance, I'd say. I mean, they did come to London together 16 years ago, didn't they? Yes, that's true. Come to think of it, didn't you say that Professor Mikotoba knew about Cosima going missing in Hong Kong? That's right, but for some reason he wasn't at liberty to talk to me about it. That probably means he knows that. About Cosima showing up here in London with amnesia, and that he's regained his memories now. Ah, there she is. Ah, Father. Hello, Susato. How are you? I'm very well, thank you. We're delighted you arrived safe and sound. The judge looks like a fucking... He looks like a Fortnite character, to be honest. Look at this wide boy. Hello, Mr. Naruhodo. Very kind of you to take the trouble to meet us here. Oh, no, not at all. It's my pleasure. We've all heard about your extraordinary exploits here in London, you know. The news has crossed the seas. Oh, it has? I always look forward to reading the monthly reports that arrive with the stamp from Britain. Oh, I see. Thank you very much. Who is this man? Who is this man? I take it from your expression you can't quite place me. In that case, how about a little reminder, Seishiro? A firm tap should do it. Yes. A firm tap. Here we go, then. I hereby pronounce the defendant, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, guilty. Ah. Oh! You're... We know. Your Excellency. Hello, Judge Jigoku. How are you? It's been a long time. Good, you remembered now. That really did the trick. Guilty. Only I was declared not guilty, wasn't I? There was no laughing. So, London again, after all this time. Hard to believe it's been 10 years. To be honest, I never thought I'd be back. Neither did I. I didn't imagine Japan ever being invited to an international symposium like this. Though, really, I doubt anyone did, to be honest. It's all thanks to you, isn't it, Seishiro? What are you talking about, Yujin? Ha 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 ha. Of course, Judge Jigoku. He must complete the set. He's the other man. Who 16 years ago came to London with Kazuma's father and Professor Mikotoba. He's the third visiting scholar. I believe we've been told this roughly 27 times now, yes. Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border rather took a lot of time. I must say I'm very envious of your ministerial status. Ministerial status. Ah! You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? Ah, I knew you were jealous. Sorry, ministerial status? Yes, didn't you know? Seishiro here is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. It was his personal insistence that allowed you to take Kazuma's place here. Guilty as charged. Ha 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 ha. Oh, well, thank you very much. He was really every bit as important as he looks. I mean, he's got like 12 beards. It's pretty impressive. Ah, yes, now, Naruhodo. I received a telegram from Lord Strongheart yesterday. Oh, you did? It appears that some things came to light in a trial you were involved in. About what happened 10 years ago. That tragedy. Yes, could you tell us any more about it? So, how was the voyage here? Well, 50 days at sea is a long time by anyone's standards. Yeah, I'm so glad I don't live in the past, dude. I would hate having to take a boat somewhere. That sounds fucking miserable. I had to take a fucking, 8-hour plane ride to get to Canada, and you know what? That fucking sucked. Hated it. Hated every nanosecond. Can't imagine going by boat. But it wasn't as bad as when we first came 16 years ago. No, that's true. Then I truly wondered if we wouldn't be able to be drifting in the vast ocean for the rest of our lives. Exactly. This time we followed the same route as you, so we were able to relax and enjoy the experience. Can't relate at all. I could not have fun on a boat. Ah, so you stopped in France's beautiful capital, Paris? We did, yes, though only for one night. And yesterday evening we left the port of Dunkirk for Dover. Just in time for the symposium, in fact. It starts tomorrow. It's wonderful that you were invited to attend such an important international event. I'm very proud of you, Father. We beat him here, though. Fucking loser. We were at the symposium way ahead of him. Well, I suppose the exhibition. Either way, we beat him here. It's thanks to Seishiro here. 16 years ago, he managed to ingratiate himself with the Britain's Attorney General. I'm sure that's why he was invited, and I suppose you could say I'm something of an appendage by default. Damn, dude, you didn't have to do yourself like that. Speak for yourself, Eugen. You were close friends with the professor of forensic science at a major hospital. Yes. Well, I'd rather not dredge all that up, really. No, there's been a lot of water under the bridge since then, but it doesn't bring him back. Kazuma's father, I suppose. Alright, let's go. The professor, the killer who took the lives of the members of the British aristocracy, was actually Kazuma's father, wasn't he? That's correct. Damn, didn't expect him to just be like, oh yeah, you're right. Genshin Asogi. Genshin. Sounds like he made a pretty big impact on Britain. He killed a lot of people. You knew, I presume, Father? Yes, he was a close friend at the time. Genshin came to Britain as a police detective. He was studying investigative techniques at Scotland Yard. I've never understood what drove the man to commit such heinous acts. It was a closed trial, so the public never knew the truth, and he was executed with little ado. To this day, very few people know what really happened, even in our homeland. But what about Kazuma? Did he know? Did he know the truth about his father? Doubtful. No, of course not. He was told his father passed from sickness. However, I suspect he may have had his doubts. Oh, why? Well, you see, he was talking about doing something terribly important to us, back before we thought he died. So, I kind of get the impression he knew, yes. As you know, I tried to guide Kazuma growing up as if he were my own son. Then, one day, he came to my office at the university and said, "I've decided I want to travel to Great Britain and study there." Do you think... Man. He wanted to come here to investigate his father's death? Yeah, I do think that's what's happened. I don't know. Well, then you're a stupid bitch. But when I looked into his eyes, I knew that there was no way I'd be able to stop him. Something else came to light in that trial the other day, actually. Oh, what? Well, having disappeared in Hong Kong and been missing for almost a year, Kazuma's since turned up here in London working as the apprentice of Lord Von Zykes. What? What? That's news to us. So, Lord Strongheart's telegram neglected to mention that part then. As you know, we both thought Kazuma had died. Man, they say if a sentence starts with, "as you know," you're meant to rewrite the sentence. We're dropping a few of them. We both thought Kazuma had died on the steamship during our voyage to Great Britain in January. But he didn't die. He's alive. As you knew, didn't you, Father? In actual fact, no. What I did know is that when your ship docked in Hong Kong, he mysteriously vanished. We sent a team of investigators to Hong Kong to try to ascertain what had happened, but to no avail. But he's still alive, and here in London, you say? I never dared even to dream it. Why on earth did the young man not make contact? The government and the police have been chasing clues fruitlessly for months now. Well, it seems that he was suffering from amnesia. What? Amnesia? When we first came across him here in London, he didn't know who either of us were. I see. He only regained his memory 8 days ago. This is unbelievable. Yes, it's quite miraculous. I wonder why Lord Strongheart didn't let us know. I must speak with him urgently. I wonder how Kazuma's been these past few days. Would it be wrong of us to go and visit him? I mean, I don't think so. That began 16 years ago now. It's a distant memory, really. It was Yujin here, Genshin Asogi, and myself. We were the original three. The first judicial scholars from Japan to travel overseas to study. Ocean voyages were not what they are today, I can tell you. 16 years ago, things were tough for their generation. Your father was an exceptionally fine medical student at Yume University at the time, you know, young lady. Yes, grandmother told me. He went to do research at a great London hospital to study autopsy, practically unheard of in Japan. Yes, it was an eerie place, sandwiched between the back of a prison and a burial ground. Ugh, no more talk of graves. Very often, there's no one willing to deal with the bodies following autopsy work. So, you see, autopsy labs have something of an unavoidable relationship with graveyards and prisons. Not my cup of tea at all. Yeah, I could never do it. Like, I'm a very squeamish person. I hate being reminded of something as not, like, small as that I have ribs. Oh, I can't stand seeing a rib cage. Do you remember that Scottish prison governor? Kayden. Kayden, yeah, probably Kayden, his name was. He was a good man. Yes, but then of course in our 6th year here, everything changed with that dreadful case. When Genshin was arrested for a series of the most gruesome murders. I simply couldn't believe it. I'd known the man for years. I was a witness at the secret hearing, and I tried to speak in his defense, but you went a little too far and ended up facing charges yourself, didn't you? What the fuck did you do? Well, suffice to say, after that trial, we were sent back to Japan. There was nothing more we could do to save Genshin. He was a lost cause, sadly. I mean, if he actually did it, I wouldn't really be trying to save him. Bit of a weird thing to say, really. We tried to save our friend from being executed for multiple murders. Well, if you'll excuse us now. Yes, I'd like to get this trunk up to my room as soon as possible. Oh, I'm so sorry I shouldn't have held you for so long. I'll call for the porter then, just wait here. They're gonna tell us something in confidentiality now? I'd like to stay and talk more, but I have various preparations to make. Yes, of course. It must be a big responsibility representing our entire country. I wish you the best of luck. Naruhodo, I hope you'll keep an eye on Susato for me. Keep looking after her as you obviously have been. You about to die? Oh, no, I mean, if anyone's looking after anyone, it's her looking after me. Well, I do appreciate you being there for her. After all, I've been a miserable father to her. I've thoroughly let her down. Sorry? What do you mean? Well, it was 16 years ago that I started my long study tour here in Britain, as you know. The very year Susato was born. Yes, I'd heard. The birth of my daughter was the most joyous event of my life, but... well, sadly it was accompanied by the most tragic event of my life, too. Oh, yes. Susato-san hinted at something like that. It was a rather turbulent time at home. Anyway, I won't bore you with the details. The point is, I became rather less dependable than befits a grown man. And it was then that Seishiro offered me the opportunity to study here in Great Britain. I was too worried about you to leave you behind, so perhaps I was a little heavy-handed when it came to persuading you to accompany me to London. So, that's what happened in a nutshell. And that's also the reason why I feel compelled to give my daughter as many opportunities as I dare. Though the world does not readily afford young women such things, I must say. I completely understand, Professor. Ah, one other thing, Naruhodo. If I may be so bold, I have a favor to ask you. Oh, really? Of course. What can I do? Well, the thing is, I'm so sorry it took so long. It's the man. Miss Susato. Now then, allow us to take your bags. Allow me to take your bags. One moment, if you please, Porter. Oh, of course, sir. That machine around your neck. It's a camera, I believe. Quite right, sir. Just 5 shillings for a lovely photograph to commemorate a wonderful stay at the hotel, sir. Well, I think given the occasion, we could justify the expense. Oh, yes, of course. I'd like to thank you for coming with me, Mr. Naruhodo. It's really made Father very happy, I think. Oh, well, I'm pleased then. But we were interrupted. You rude bitch. Professor Mikotobo was about to ask me something. Shall we return to Baker Street, then? I expect Iris will have something delicious waiting for us. Yes, let's go. I'm getting more and more anxious about Cosima, though. Perhaps I'll try to meet with Lord Strongheart later and ask after him. Alright, let's make a move. I'm not doing that. What was that? A man screaming in a most unflattering way. Do you think... Could it have been Sholmes? Oh my, I do hope not. I don't do it anymore. Mon ami, mon ami. Stop this disgraceful display. Who are these people? Look at their hair, it's bright red. Yeah. I think they must be clients. Right, you two. You're coming with me now. Down to the clink. No, not in prison. It is dark and damp and I don't like it. Oh, the darkness, it is my friend. I am not scared. Alright. But you are always scared of the dark. Shut your mouth, you idiot. I will sit quietly in the dark and plan our next daring heist. I don't like this. I don't like this. Well, tough. You coming down? We'll finish this down at the yard. Now get moving. Bye then, Ginny. Have fun. Oh yeah, thanks, Oris, and thanks. You're a great detective. I don't want to ever do those voices again, but they have their own models, so I'm expecting to see them again. Gina makes a fine detective herself, doesn't she? Oh, Susie. And Bruno. Hello, Iris. We're home. Well, did you find your daddy? It was a different time. Yes, we arrived at the hotel just before he and his friend. Oh, well, that's great news. I hope I'll get to see my daddy again soon. We are going to have to tell her one of these days. Doctor, yes. So, Iris, all that remains now is the greatest of problems known to man. Oh, shit, look at my dude. Oh, fuck. But before we concern ourselves with that, I believe some tea's in order, don't you, my dear fellows? Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Do I have a crumb or such like on my face? Not so much on your face, as on your head, I'd say. Come along then, everyone. I've brewed a lovely special blend. Time for tea. Whatever is going on here today? In that case, let us sit and drink now. For I am, in fact, expecting a guest later today. Sholmes. Who were the two gentlemen that were here before? Oh, just a pair of petty criminals, nothing of significance. Of course, they have to make a living somehow. And when the mood takes me, I'm willing to turn a blind eye to all manner of infractions. When the mood takes you, all manner of infractions. But when such fellows set their sights on Mr. Herlock Sholmes, well, that's when their luck has run out. Oh my, you were the target of a crime? But I quickly devised a plan to entrap them and deliver them to our young detective ally. You should have asked Gregsy to come too. We could have had an arresting tea party. I did send word, but no answer was forthcoming. The man is consummately in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's a word for it, I'm sure. Ah, I have it. A bungler. That's the word. It's a good job he's not here to hear you say that. So those redheads have been up to no good. Look, why would they be going to prison for any other reason? I wonder what the men did. What was that about the greatest of problems known to man? Is it another fiendishly intricate case, Sholmes? How should I best explain it? Are you aware of the theory of evolution by natural selection, perchance? Why has it started playing the serious music? Well, I think I've heard talk of it somewhere, possibly. It's a revolutionary scientific theory that was newly proposed 40 years ago now, so not very newly then. According to its author, Mr. Darwin, we humans were once apes who lived in the treetops. Wait, what? We were apes? Oh, and if only we still were. But no, some fucking stupid monkey had to develop thumbs, and here we are now. Indeed, in the very moment those apes descended from the canopy to live as humans, it has been our lot to be at the mercy of the greatest problem known to man. It's really the fish's fault. One of those fuckers decided to walk on land one day, and look what happened. Look what happened. Our lot? What is this great problem, Sholmes? Why, is it not obvious, my dear madam? The problem of rent. But did you not receive a rather large sum of money from Tuspils the other day? Pshaw! A large sum? One potted herb for Iris and a new motor car for me later, and all of it has disappeared, I assure you. You lost a car? Honestly, Hurley, you know you squandered it. Yes, well, anyway, 2 days ago, I discovered the answer to man's greatest problem, for the coming month at least. And what was the answer? Why, there is a substantial clue before your very eyes. Don't tell me, let me see. Humans are sorry creatures, unable to see what is in front of their nose. Let me give you some assistance. Don't look, but observe me very closely. Don't look, but observe. There is one particular feature about my person that has changed. In the end. It's been stabbing me in both eyes right from the very beginning. I think we might need another clue. Oh. Thanks for the hint. I'll be tearing my hair out if this charade goes on much longer. No lie. Sholmes, isn't it about time you told us the truth? It's just over a week ago you said to us. I will now tell you something of the first importance, my dear fellow. Great detectives are wont to lie. It will serve you well to remember that. That case aboard the SS Burya in January. Cosimo wasn't killed, and you knew he wasn't dead at the time. So what was really going on? The fellow was unconscious for a very long time. If he hadn't regained consciousness when he did, his life would have been in mortal peril. Of course, a side effect of the prolonged comatose state was amnesia, as you now know. It was a simple enough task to silence the crew, but how? After they'd carried him out of the cabin, I assembled them in the lobby area. Then I made them swear to leave him unconscious and have him unlaid from the ship in Hong Kong as a murdered corpse. Oh, how horrible. It was necessary to find some material with which to persuade the crewmen to keep their word, of course. But why? Why do it in the first place? I will be at liberty to elaborate in due course. But for the time being, I would like to reassure you. I didn't foresee subsequent events. What events? His disappearance in Hong Kong. Oh. I believe I may have made a gross error of judgment. Sholmes. All right. So, Iris, do you want to talk at all? If she's actually here. Alright, good talk, team. Let's go see Strongheart. Here's the final draft of the opening address for tomorrow's proceedings. I've supplemented your original with the figures you asked for from the yard. I see. Excellent work. Thank you. You're welcome. What's Lord Van Zykes doing here? My, there seems to be an awful lot of tension in the air, wouldn't you say? It's almost as if Zykes the other day did something that he was explicitly told not to. This place is stifling enough. We really don't need any more tension. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just calibrate the cat. There we go. My apologies. I didn't notice you come in. Your small stature and dark dress make you all but invisible to me. Oh, no, it's entirely my fault for wearing black, I'm sure. From now on, you must dress in white from head to toe whenever you come here. Now then, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, my lord, I'm right here. Kill me now. Is something wrong? Perhaps it's a little too hot in here for you. Oh, no, not at all. I've never experienced a room at such perfect temperature. If you're sure, the beads of sweat carving their way down your face seem to suggest otherwise. Because of the daggers you're staring me with, mainly. As you're no doubt aware, my International Forensic Science Symposium begins tomorrow. In fact, your father arrived in London earlier today, I hear, madam. Oh, yes, that's right. He's extremely honored to have been invited. I'll leave the remaining preparations for the meeting room in your capable hands then, Von Zykes. I will attend at once. He gave you a very cold stare as he left, didn't he? I know, but I haven't done anything, have I? These past few days, my feet have barely touched the ground, I must say. My dedicated right hand of many years was recently put out of action in spectacular fashion. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is your left hand still of service? Naruhodo, you're a stupid bitch. Ah, of course. I'm terribly sorry about that. I was just... Fear not. You've done nothing wrong. Dr. Scythe's own wrongdoing precipitated the situation. You needn't concern yourself with it any further. That would be a lot easier if it weren't for the piercing stare. Lord Von Zykes is doing an admirable job of holding the fort. Though disturbingly, his apprentice has been missing since yesterday. Oh, missing? What's become of Kazuma-sama now? Not long ago, visitor numbers to the Great Exhibition exceeded 30 million. Damn. 30 million? Are there even that many people in the world? Yes. Yes, there are. At least. As a comparison, Mr. Naruhodo, the population of the imperial capital of Tokyo is 2 million. I will be opening the International Forensic Science Symposium in the exhibition's main auditorium. This event has been 2 years in the making. 2 years of preparations and negotiation with other countries. And someone's gonna get fucking murdered. It sounds like a tremendous achievement. Congratulations. The 20th century will see the wholesale adoption of forensic investigation techniques. And cooperation between policing organizations around the globe will be essential. Which is why this landmark first symposium had to be hosted here at the heart of our great British Empire, in order that Scotland Yard can become the leading investigative organization in the world. He's the same as ever, I see. That passion is quite something. You're every bit as passionate in your own way, I'm sure, Mr. Naruhodo. Nah. I'm the only person in this country who truly cares about a future that embraces forensic science. It is my intention to become Her Majesty's Attorney General and reform the Yard from the ground up. So the disgrace of the forensic investigation team has been a bitter blow to my ambitions. Yeah, that must have been pretty unpleasant. I first established the forensic investigation team a year ago, experimentally, to start with. With Dr. Scythe at the helm, it was steadily accruing an impressive record of achievement. I was on the verge of changing its name and elevating its status to full-blown in forensic investigation department. And can you not do that now? Probably not. Obviously. Nobody wants to hear anything about it at the moment. Even I can't keep the story out of the papers. 6 million Londoners will be cursing forensic science now. This incident will set back our country's advancement in the field by a good 10 years, I'd say. Unintended repercussions. We simply couldn't have overlooked what had happened, though. Of course not. We should all be grateful to you both. Anyway, I'll still reform this country's policing when I become Attorney General. This might delay my plans, but it won't alter them. Nothing will stand in my way. About Van Zykes' apprentice. Ah, yes. That came as a surprise to me, I must say, that you and he are old friends. How did he become an apprentice to Van Zykes in the first place? It came about 3 months ago. An unidentified Asian man was apprehended by border police. They found him hiding aboard a large goods vessel. So obviously I made him a prosecutor. Oh my, so he stowed away to get here? He had no papers to identify him, no passport, and he was suffering from amnesia too. Other than the fact he was clearly of Eastern descent, there were no clues as to who he was. So I decided to assign him to Van Zykes. That way I could keep an eye on him. But then, why the mask? I didn't want to burden Van Zykes with tiresome explanations about why he had an Eastern apprentice. Because it would have been much easier to explain why he was wearing a mask? He's proving to be a great help to Lord Van Zykes. I have high hopes for his future. By the way, do you know where he's gone? No idea, but I believe he's left London for the time being. Why? Why do you think that? I take it you also didn't know. That's the man's father was one of our country's most infamous criminals, I mean. Genshin Asogi. What we learned from the trial 8 days ago was a huge shock. Finding out my friend's father was... Ah, yes, Genshin Asogi. The Professor case 10 years ago caused a great stir here in Britain. There were such awful murders, and unprecedented, using a ferocious dog as a murder weapon. And no one would have believed the culprit was a foreign student invited here to study by the government. So the true identity of the killer couldn't be made public then, and can't be made public now. Nobody in your country knows it was him, and neither do the citizens of London. The main motivation was to avoid aggravating relations between our nations at the time, I understand. Correct. However, it has to be noted that there were some supporters of the Professor's apparent cause. What? Support of a mass murderer? The majority of the man's victims were a blight on the aristocracy of the day. Somewhat ironically, their deaths actually benefited society as a whole. Or so a fair few thinkers in London believed, anyway. Right, I see. But it was still murder. It seems very similar, doesn't it? To the idea of the Reaper of the Bailey. It does. Is that it? Do we not have any other conversation? I mean, I don't have anything to show you, so, guess so. Unless Van Zykes is loitering? Nope. Alright, thanks! Bye! Where are we going now? Not here, it looks like. Mm-hmm. Wait, no. There was an arrow. Alright. Maybe we go back and ask Sholmes about the now known to be missing. Okay. Upstairs. It's a little awkward that what to do has been discovered after I did several things. It's good news that Professor Mikotoba arrived safely. Yes, it's wonderful, and the fact Father has been invited to this important international event really makes me very proud to be his daughter. Your father, Judge Jigoku, us, and Kazuma, of course. There's an ever-increasing number of Japanese here in Britain's capital, isn't there? Well, yes, I suppose. But London does have a population of 6 million people, so I think we're still a minority. Just by a few, you know, dozen at least. Susato-san's father, who came here as a visiting student, and Kazuma. It's almost as if some great power has been at work drawing them here through the ocean to London. And I feel as though the waters are starting to swell again. You're a fucking nerd. Well, now what? What are we doing now? Oh, is it this newspaper? This looks like last week's edition. What's that article circled in red ink there? It's an advertisement column. It says, to the Red-Headed League. Ah. The Red-Headed League. What's that? I don't know. I've never heard of it before, but... Is something on my face? Clearly this has something to do with that lively hair. Let me have a gander. On account of the bequest of the late Ezekiah Hopkins of Lebanon, PA, USA, there is now another vacancy open which entitles a member of the League to a salary of £4 a week for purely nominal services. All red-headed men who are sound in body and mind and above the age of 21 years are eligible. Apply in person on the morning of the 31st at the Large Bank Park on Lime Street. What else we got? Public Health Report. St. Bartholomew's. Alright. Sholmes. What's going on? It looks as though someone's circled an advertisement in this paper, Sholmes. To the Red-Headed League? Does that strike you in some way? I was thinking that just maybe it might be related to your bright red hair. So, at last you've learnt to apply my methods, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? In the first instance, and quite indispensable, observation. Believe me, I could have seen that hair with my eyes shut. So then, allow me to regale you with the details of my latest exploits. Regale or boast. That's okay, it can be both. So what is the Red-Headed League, which seems to be the subject of the advertisement? You noticed it in the paper, then? That, my dear fellow, was going to be the source of this month's rent payment. It was? How? According to the advertisement, the Red-Headed League is a distinguished institute of fellows of unspecified governance. What's wrong with me? In fact, the only condition for becoming a member is having red hair. That doesn't entirely surprise me. But listen to what the lucky redheads have received once they join. An unconditional salary of £4 a week. Oh my, £4 a week? But why? What are they paying people for? That I don't know. No details are given in the advertisement. But surely every red-headed person in the country would be flocking to join in that case. Well, but we live in England, not Scotland. You're right, Susie. There's no time to lose. I'll put in my application at once. So will I. Just on the off chance. That might be stretching a point, I think. Trouble is, they have a fixed number of members, you see. Oh, I see. Once a certain member have joined, no one else can. But as luck would have it, one member recently passed away. It wasn't particularly lucky for the redhead in question, I feel, Sholmes. So you decided to try to join in his place? Correct. I mean, look at me. Have you ever seen such a red-headed fellow? No. So why? Why did it have to go so wrong? What on earth happened? A blunder, Mr. Naruhodo, though it pains me to admit it. What did you actually do to your hair, Sholmes? I'm glad you asked, Mr. Sato. What you see atop my head is neither dye nor a hairpiece. I changed the color of my hair overnight by the wonders of chemistry. Oh no. Chemistry? I was conducting some research into a method of rejuvenating spent tea leaves. And in the course of my work, I stumbled upon a potion that, when taken, turns one's hair a flame-like red. Would you like to try it? It will make every hair on your body perfectly crimson. To be honest, I would. I think I'll pass. But Sholmes, is it quite safe to drink? Surely it's bad for you, isn't it? Amateurs are always hampered by such fears. Oh, I should have never doubted you, Sholmes. You mean to say... But of course. To earn £4 per week, one must be prepared to turn a blind eye to a little danger. That degree of red signals more than just a little danger. So anyway, Hurley left full of confidence yesterday with his new red hair. For the park on Lime Street, where the Red-Headed League were interviewing prospective new members. So what went wrong? The whole park was choked with red-headed folk, like a coaster's orange burrow. I queued for 8 hours solid before at last I reached the front. But when the panel of interviewers saw me, they immediately said, "Ah, Herlock Sholmes, are you in disguise to conduct an investigation?" So naturally, I had no choice but to reply, "Shh, don't give me away." After which I could do little else but turn and leave. Then this morning, when I looked in the mirror, irritation stirred within me. So I turned that pair into the police. So it was a revenge crime solving? Oh dear, what a disaster for Hurley and those two redheads. A good old revenge arrest. Ding-a-ling. Aha! Here is my guest now, my latest client, with money to spend. Oh, I do hope it's an exciting case. Remember, Iris, we here at present are gripped by the greatest problem known to man. I must be willing to accept any case, no matter how unstimulating, save locating a runaway, of course. Don't spare anyone's feelings, will you? Oh dear, I'm afraid that Hurley can lack a little tact, especially just before the rent is due. Oh, it's you. Mr. Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, please. Oh, please. Please find my husband. He's run away. To upset me. I beg your pardon? Never mind. A personal matter. My apologies. What exactly are you trying to say, Mr. Naruhodo? I didn't say a word. Come, my dear madam, be seated. Iris, some tea, if you please. Of course. What's the matter? Oh, it's that gentlewoman. I feel I've seen her somewhere. Y'all are terrible at remembering faces. As I explained earlier, my name is Evie Vigil. Evie Vigil? Vigil? Vigil. Why the fuck did I go Vigil? Vigil. I implore you to take the case, sir. Money is no object. Simply name your figure. Money and wealth are of little consequence to me, madam. Being offered a case to solve is reward enough. Don't say that. Oh, Sholmes, you are a picture of benevolence. I will of course make a mental note of your offer, however, for contingent reasons. I trust you will remember your words. Also, if I might inquire, sir, this gentleman and lady would be... Oh, me? What am I to tell you? I should like to communicate in the strictest confidence, you understand? Ah, these are my friends. I assure you, you may say before this pair anything which you may say to me. Ah, I see. I can vouch for the gentleman personally, after all. He's hard of hearing. Why did I ever get my hopes up? And now we shall conduct the interview. Ho ho. Forgive me for asking, Mrs. Vigil, but have we met before somewhere? Yes. Oh my. Pshaw, my dear fellow, what is your intention? Clearly you have no ability to differentiate the facial features of the English. If you wish to invite the lady to tea, you must do so in a more gentlemanly fashion. Is it possible that you're the nice young lawyer from the trial I attended? Ah. Yes, you slow bitch. Good job. You caught up in the end. I didn't quite recognize her because she's acting so differently. It must be very difficult for you as a lawyer, being hard of hearing, I mean. Pardon? Oh dear, I'm so sorry. Don't worry if you can't hear. It was frippery, really, nothing more. Now look what you've started, Sholmes. I believe it would be prudent for you to sit quietly in the corner. Yes. Tell us about your husband, madam. Mr. Vigil, my daily, is 40 years of age. I have a photograph here. What a fucking nerd. Holy shit, look at this dude. Holy fuck, what a dweeb. I want to give him a wedgie. An entirely unremarkable gentleman, by appearance at least. How long have you been married? It will be 15 years this year. We have a cordial relationship, and my husband's income is more than adequate so we can live quite comfortably. As it would appear. I need only to look at you to know these things. Oh, gosh. Your dress is the latest style, your hat clearly regularly groomed, and your eyes are animated. In short, you have no inkling as to why your husband might have disappeared, correct? That's right. He's a kind man with a strong sense of loyalty, and he rather dotes on me. Which would point to the possibility that he had become embroiled in some incident or other. Oh, that is exactly what I fear must have happened, Sholmes. I'm quite beside myself. My husband's employment is somewhat unusual, you see. What if he's incurred some miscreant's ill will? What exactly is your husband's line of work? He's a warder at the prison. A guard? That is somewhat unusual. So, your husband is a prison warder? That's right, yes. Well, in actual fact, he's the chief warder. Indeed, I see. Well, chief prison warder certainly qualifies as something of a specialist occupation. Yes, it does indeed. My poor husband must prepare those dreadful punishments and see that they're carried out. Dreadful punishments? What else? And at such times, he must occasionally spend a night or two in the prison dormitory. But for that extra responsibility, he is remunerated more handsomely than the other warders. Of course, we make no mention of my husband's work to the neighbors. Yes, I believe your prudence is justified. Tell me, at what prison is your husband engaged? Barclay Prison, Sholmes. Uh-oh. Really? Barclay? Oh, a fine establishment. If I'm not mistaken, there is a large cemetery just behind it. Yes, that's correct. Lowgate Cemetery. Yeah. 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 All that's true. Yeah, no, not at all. There are like 12 people that exist in London. It's very simple to connect it all. Unbelievable, my dear fellow, yet undeniable. Sorry, Mr. Sholmes, I'm afraid you've lost me. Despite the fact we talked at length about this a week ago. Ah, pay no heed, madam, pay no heed. A private matter. That was openly discussed in front of you for several hours. This really can't be a coincidence, can it? So, to the matter of your husband's disappearance. When did you realize he was missing? Please try not to laugh. It was yesterday. I'm sorry, yesterday? That really is recent, laughably so. The truth is, my husband does at times have occasion to spend the night away for his work. It's not at all out of the ordinary for him to not return home at night, but this is different. For him to not make any contact for a whole day, that has certainly never happened before. Oh, my dear Daly, whatever could have happened? My dear Miss Vigil, please, calm yourself. Now then, have you contacted the police? Why, naturally, but sadly, they refused to listen to my pleas as my husband has only been missing for one day. I do hate that this is, like, what happens a lot with, like, missing persons cases, that there are so many stories. I love true crime stuff. There are so many stories about someone who got murdered, they reported it missing, and just no one fucking listened to a report for like a week. And then, oh, they're dead. Like, I feel like probably we should assume something bad might have happened until we see otherwise, given the frequency with which these ignored cases end up being murder cases in the future. God damn it. Oh, it makes me mad. I was asked to wait patiently at home. In truth, Mrs. Vigil, I concur with the police. However, let us not be hasty. I see no reason why we should not engage my deductive powers to track your husband down anyway. Oh, thank you, Sholmes. And furthermore, let me assure you, a chance to solve the greatest problem known to man for another month has no bearing on my decision. I seek only to put a sweet smile onto another Londoner's face. That's really all there is to it. You have my eternal gratitude. I shall pay any sum you care to mention. You seek only to put this week's rent in your landlady's purse. Thank you for everything you have shared with us, Mrs. Vigil. Sorry, I suddenly became paranoid. Something wasn't recording. It is recording. I believe I have all the information I need to begin my investigation. Oh, please report to me with some good news soon, sir. I've butchered that whole sentence. Fear not, madam. In a day or two, I shall be contacting you with a heartening report, I'm quite sure. So soon? Oh, how splendid, Mr. Sholmes. Good news should be delivered early, I always say. If you would be so kind as to leave a photograph of your husband in my possession. I want to look at the photo. I was sort of hoping I might actually be able to flip it over and look at something behind it, but I guess not. Though I am going to scan for anything unusual, which I don't see as of now. Other than he looks like a fucking dweeb, as previously established. Now, allow me to show you the door. I can't thank you enough, Sholmes. You've been simply marvelous. You know, I think it every time, Hurley. But how do you come out with such nonsense? Good news in a day or two? Are you sure? I can't be sure, of course. But then, I didn't swear on it. I merely gave the woman some hope. I hope to be able to give her good news, one might say. After all, the rent must be paid by the end of the day tomorrow. Face, there you go. If, by that time, I have successfully located Mr. Vigil, we shall be mutually relieved. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Don't look at me with those pleading eyes. Well, my dear fellow, did you hear the details of the case? Yes, my hearing is surprisingly good, actually. Excellent! And what did you make of it? Well, I was surprised to learn where her husband worked, at Barclay Prison, I mean. Ah, so you noted that. Of course, especially with the mention of Lowgate Cemetery. Yes, we remember. Barclay Prison is where that notorious man was incarcerated, the Professor. And now a warder from the prison has mysteriously disappeared, it would seem. It's all very peculiar. Indeed. But nothing you can't handle, I'm quite certain, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? Run along to the prison and see what you can glean. Would you? It's the prison governor you want. No doubt the man is equally worried. But aren't you going to go yourself? Surely you needn't ask. I can't possibly be seen out with this hair. But didn't you go to Lime Street with that hair? That was quite a different matter. So I leave it in your capable hands. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm rather busy. Of course you are. He turns around and just starts stacking pens or some shit. Barclay Prison is on the outskirts of London, backing onto a lonely burial ground. Its 4 high outer walls loomed quietly before us in the fog. Having requested a meeting, we were shown to the governor's office in the watchtower. Dog, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? What are you doing? Also, why is this boy in such a tiny cage? Will we get to cross-examine him later? That would be exciting. This place is full of hardened criminals. I can't even remember the last time a civilian was down here. And you didn't want to talk to an inmate, but to me? Do you ken who I am? I'm the governor, Barry Kaiden. Yes, it's a pleasure. I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo, defense lawyer. And an Easterner, I see. Does that mean? Yes, I'm a visiting student of law from the Empire of Japan. Japan? Did you say Japan? Yes. Well, there's no any of your kind here, laddie. Maybe you should try the prison next door, eh? I didn't notice another prison next door, sir. Anyway, we can't... I didn't like to be so direct, but... I have no intention of speaking with the likes of you suspicious-looking Easterners. Well, Jesus. Now get out of me here. So as soon as he finds out we're from Japan, he reacts like this. That surely means he's racist. I think it's because of the It could just be a case of classic racism. You think so too? 10 years ago, Genshin Isoge, after his execution, he was apparently re-emerged from his grave. I might have known. You're sniffing around about that case, aren't you? Your agents, eh? Part of the Professor's great web, no doubt. No, not at all. Get going with you before I punch your lights out. We're going. Clearly the ghost of that killer still haunts this place. Or he's just racist. Unless we can somehow prove to this man there's nothing suspicious about us. Governor Caden. What are you thinking, Sasato? I feel sure that name came up in conversation recently somewhere. I was wondering if whoever mentioned him might have some ideas to help us. Come to think of it, I have the same feeling. Yes. We'll be back. Wait right there. Oh! Was it you? I have a terrible memory, sorry. That's Professor Mikotoba. Oh, hello, you two. I was just taking a moment to catch up on the world now that I'm unpacked. But where's Judge Jigoku? Yes, he's not the relaxing sort. He's taken himself off to pay respects to all the legal bigwigs. Having only just arrived in the country today, goodness, he is full of energy. Professor, you mentioned something before. About how you'd known the prison governor at Barclay? Oh, Governor Caden, you mean? So, it is the same man. Alright, it was him. Father, we must speak with the governor. But he refused to talk to us. He said we were suspicious Easterners. Well, I'm sure if I accompanied you, it would be a very different story. Oh, would you? That would be wonderful. Sadly, as you can see, I'm very busy at the moment. Busy drinking coffee on a comfortable settee. Now, I have a rather lot to prepare for tomorrow, you know. Oh, sorry. You Mikotobas are alarmingly good at reading people's thoughts. Or it could be that you Naruhodo are alarmingly bad at hiding your thoughts. Let's not fall out now. I have an idea. What's he writing? Here's a letter of introduction for you. Hopefully when he sees my name, he'll change his tune. Ah, thank you. Good luck then. Thanks. Hey, dude. Wait, let me read it, actually. Professor Mikotoba has wonderful handwriting, doesn't he? This dark-suited young man is not in the least bit untrustworthy. Is it just me, or does that make me sound untrustworthy? I do wish he at least called you a nice young man. I'm really not sure that would help. I can't help but notice a suspicious chunk is missing. Oh, it looks like some sort of steamship ticket. The SS Gross, first class cabin 001. Yokohama departure 11th of September, London arrival 1st of November. That's the boat that Professor Mikotoba and Judge Jigoku came on from Japan, isn't it? Yes, I think I called it Dunkirk, on the north coast of France for a night before arriving in Dover. To think it's been almost a year since we arrived in Dover on the Buria. Seems a shame not to keep your ticket as a memento, don't you think? Yes, I agree. I have mine safely in my diary. And I keep mine in my wallet, so I have it with me at all times, you fucking nerd. Oh well, how strange. Where could it have gone? Are you like this on purpose? I do wonder. Did I imagine it, or was that comment accompanied by a little sigh? How strange. Wait. Whoops. If you'd cast your eyes over this, Governor Caden. What's this then? You can't pull the wool over my eyes, you good-for-nothing Japanese student. Mikotoba. That young jock from the forensic laboratory. That Mikotoba. Yes, exactly. Him. Oh dear, perhaps I should have said something sooner. I'm Yujin Mikotoba's daughter, Susato. Jings! You're the young man's daughter. And you didn't think to mention that afore. I do apologize. Aye, well, you'd best take a seat then. Can I offer you a cup of tea, perhaps? And did you forget to try one of these wee handcuffed biscuits? Your father's influence is nothing short of amazing. I'm bitterly regretting not announcing who I was from the outset now. So then, what can I do you for, hen? Well, we're currently investigating a case. It's one of your warders, you see. He's gone missing. Missing? That's right. It's been reported to you as well, being the prison warder. I haven't heard nothing of the sort. There's no missing persons in my prison. Oh. But how can that be? It's Mr. Daily Vigil, your chief warder. Eh? Vigil? That's right. His wife came to us and asked us to investigate his disappearance. Let's skip the part about having him only been missing since yesterday. Clearly that means something to him. Would you be so kind as to tell us what you know, sir? Aye, of course. We understand Mr. Vigil is the chief warder here at the prison. Aye, that he was. Strong sense of responsibility and dedicated to the job, no doubt about it. He was a fine warder. Notice, was. Yeah. Aye, he doesn't work here no more. He left the job. Oh. When, exactly? There's a question. When was it about? It can't have been much less than 10 years ago now. What? I mean, 10 years ago? You stopped working here 10 years ago? Aye, as I mind it. Do you ken? I haven't heard the fella's name in all that time. There's a worry if he's gone missing though. But Mrs. Vigil made no mention of it. I think perhaps, Mr. Naruhodo, that his wife simply doesn't know. Yeah. I think she's unaware that he no longer works here. Governor Caden, can you tell us what happened? Why did Vigil give up his job? That's important, is it? Yes, I believe it may be. What are you thinking? I can't help wondering, given that it was 10 years ago. Ah, which was exactly when the professor was being held at this prison. So, Mr. Vigil actually resigned from being position of chief warder 10 years ago. What happened to make him leave the job? In actual fact, he didn't leave the job willingly. He had no choice in the matter. You mean he was dismissed? It was after a particular walk. Sorry, a walk. Aye, that's our word for it in here. A walk to the gallows. An execution. It's the job of the chief warder to prepare the gallows tree and oversee any executions, you see. Only Vigil did something unthinkable on that last walk he was manning. What did he do? I'm sorry, but I can't reveal that information. But I can tell you that it's very rare for a chief warder to be relieved of his post. But why wouldn't Mrs. Vigil know? She appears to be under the impression her husband still works here. I wouldn't ken anything about that, I'm afraid. Can you perhaps answer one more question about the circumstances? And what would that be, Hen? That last execution Vigil was responsible for. Was it by any chance the professor's? I'm sorry, I really am. I'm not at liberty to answer that. I see. Which means yes. But, you know, we already knew that. My father came to Britain all those years ago in order to study forensic medicine. But you seem to have been well acquainted. The dead room, the prison and the cemetery have a lot to do with one another. After all, they need fresh corpses for forensic research. Yes, I can imagine. The advancement of medical science isn't always particularly palatable. Your father worked in the laboratory on the far side of the graveyard, in the basement of St. Sinners, still in use today. St. Sinners? Yes, it also has. Yes, that's right, we've been there. Mikatoba and I used to ride in a carriage together and negotiate terms for more fresh material. Aye, and we used to sit in for hours and gab on about dissections and all sorts. It takes me back. Over a pot of tea and a plate of cuff biscuits, of course. How charming. I love the idea that this dude bakes his own little handcuff biscuits. He was a good fella, your father, reliable and dead set on his work. But I'm afraid I'll never understand you Japanese. Because of Genshin, I suppose. Gacha will do that to people. Well... I can't tell you anything else. Thank you so much for your time, Governor. Oh, one moment before you're away, Hen. I'm sure I have it here somewhere. Ah, found it. Here, take this as a wee souvenir of your visit to the prison. What is it? That's Vigil's dismissal notice. It's 10 years old now, of course. Oh my, are you sure? Aye, it's no trouble at all. It's no the original mind. Let's have a look-see. Chief Warder Daily Vigil is relieved of his post with the immediate effect of having violated Clause 132 of Her Majesty's Code of Conduct for Prisons, 25th of June. All right to redundancy pay and other financial benefits are fully revoked. Aiding and abetting the escape from prison escape from this prison of convict redacted just prior to his execution. I was about to say his investigation. What the fuck is wrong with me? Details of this escape are still being investigated. Full cooperation with inquiries will be expected. Prison Governor Barry Caden. Indications are that the jailbreak plot was conceived prior to the convict's incarceration. It's believed the convict engaged in some sort of negotiation with prison staff in order to secure assistance. Full disclosure of information regarding these negotiations will be demanded. Thank you very much, Governor Caden. Well, in return, do me a favor and never come back here again. That case is closed. Bad news, you're probably going to have to be in court in a few days. Well, I think we ought to return to Baker Street. Yes, I agree. We need to report back to Sholmes with what we found about Vigil. What will he tell Mrs. Vigil, I wonder? Yeah, that's going to be a hard one to explain. We're back. Hello, you two. I thought you'd be back before long, so I baked some scones for us all. Ah, so that's what that delicious smell is. Greetings, my dear fellows. What you doing? You've returned a good deal sooner than I was anticipating. Hello, Sholmes. Hello, Mr. Sholmes. Say nothing. Your thoughts are written all over your faces in any case. It turns out it may have been advisable to test my hair color restoration tonic before application. Oh my. Pray tell me what of our warder friend. Have you garnered some new information? Oh, yes, something very surprising in fact, though it's not a patch on your hair, to be honest. It most certainly isn't, but still, Sholmes. Drop everything, Sholmes. This is more important. Gina. Oh, I can't Adam and Eve it. Sniff, sniff. What happened? What happened? Clearly a very grave matter. For Miss Lestrade made no mention of my hair. It's the boss. Oh no. What do you mean? The boss he's dead. Oh god. What? They just found his body, shot with a pistol. What? But Inspector Gregson? He was murdered? No, not Gregsy. Come in, my dear girl. Tell us the whole story. Are you serious, Gina? Gregson he was shot? Oh, I don't know much about what happened myself yet. They're still there, investigating the scene. Where did this take place?
A little rented room in a building full of flats on Frenzo Street.
The outskirts of town, nowhere near his home. He was perhaps investigating a case.
The thing is, no one at the yard knows nothing about no case round there.
Oh, how strange.
The boss he was so good to me. I know I ain't up to much yet, but one day I was gonna show him how I'd become a proper detective.
Oh, Ginny. So, who did this? Do you have any idea who the culprit is?
They got him already.
Already? They've caught the shooter?
A witness reported something was going on and the boys straight down there and took care of him.
Who? Don't say Von Zykes.
I still can't believe it myself.
Gina?
It was the Reaper.
I predicted it perfectly. Except for Gregson being the one that died. Didn't really expect it to be Gregson. Wait a minute, you don't mean they've arrested Von Zykes?
That's right. The Reaper bloke's gone and shot the boss.
No. Are you quite sure, Miss Lestrade? It's Barak Von Zykes the police have arrested.
I saw him with my own eyes, in the interview room at the yard.
I don't believe it.
But there were witnesses, and they're all saying it was him.
So you mean there were actually multiple witnesses?
They heard the gunshot, apparently, and when our lot got to the scene, there was only the boss and that Reaper bloke in the room.
But there's no way Von Zykes could have taken Gregson's life. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it either. Thank you for informing us, Miss Lestrade. This really is most terrible news. I'm dreadfully sorry.
What are you saying sorry for? You didn't do nothing. Well, anyway, I'm taking a cab over to the scene right now. Please come and all as soon as you can. You've got to help.
It's a detective's lot to appear whenever some sinister plot has unfolded. Little wonder we all look haggard. Sometimes these things are almost too much for the nerves. Sholmes.
What use is there in being a great detective if I fail to see something like this coming, How could I let this happen to Gregson?
Mr. Naruhodo, I shall leave at once to begin my investigations. Of course, yes, we will too. It would be helpful if you could talk to Mr. Reaper and see what you can glean. I'm sure you were intending to do so anyway. Until later, then. Inspector Gregson dead, and Von Zykes arrested. Runo, Susie, I called you a handsome. It's waiting outside. Thanks, Iris. Shall we? Yes. All right. There he is, Von Zykes behind bars. So it's true, he really was arrested. He's still sitting with his back to the wall reading something. I don't think he's noticed us. Lord Von Zykes? fancy meeting you here. The last place on Earth I'd like to be, with the last person on Earth I'd like to see. I couldn't very well not come. We heard what happened, that you, the Inspector... Go home. This has nothing to do with you. But... Forgive me, Von Zykes, but I must disagree. Inspector Gregson was very helpful to us on a number of occasions. We're indebted to him. At the very least, we owe it to him to find out the truth about his death. You must help us with our investigation, please. There's really nothing I can tell you. What were you just reading? Was it something related to the case? This? The Yard isn't quite so cavalier with its information as to share details with a suspect. This is a letter from an old acquaintance. Oh, who might that be? Someone you know, as it happens. Albert Harebrain. Of course, yes. And I would like to read my correspondence in peace, so let's get this over with, shall we? What is it you want to know? Strange. I mean, let's face it, Von Zykes never minces his words, but they seem to have less bite than usual. Can you at least tell us your side of the story, Von Zykes? What happened? How much do you already know? We know that the inspector was shot dead in a small rented room on Frenso Street, and that you were found there by the police when they arrived and immediately arrested. We were told there was nobody else in the room and that some witnesses heard the gunshot. Then you're well informed, and there's really nothing I can add. The truth is, I don't know what happened myself. But the gunshot, obviously you didn't fire the gun. I'm not in the habit of shooting the people I work alongside. I also heard the noise, however. Before I had a chance to investigate, I was apprehended by the arriving officers. So he doesn't actually know what happened. If I might ask, what were you doing in that place to begin with? I don't need to answer that. Oh. After all, you're not representing me. He is going to need a lawyer, though. To be fair, it seems like if anyone was qualified to represent themselves... Who is going to be representing you in court, Von Zykes? Anyone other than you, I should imagine. Would I be right in assuming that you have no representation? Defense lawyers shy away from any trial involving the Reaper, as I'm sure you know. But this is different. In my career, all of the defendants I've prosecuted, only 19 have ever been acquitted. Of them, 16 subsequently died in mysterious circumstances. Questions will be asked now. Surely not. I assure you, no defense lawyer will want to touch me with the end of a barge pole. But you didn't actually have anything to do with those people's deaths, did you? It's been 10 years now that I've been known as the Reaper of the Bailey. Believe me, nobody wants to know the true identity of this killer more than I. However, it seems things may come to a head before I have the chance to uncover the truth about that. What does he mean by that? That he's going to be executed. After the trial, Harebrain was supposed to go to Germany. It's a letter to inform me of his safe arrival at home. I arranged his passage by sea and rail. It's a relief, I must say. He should now be beyond the reaches of the Reaper. Because the Reaper doesn't follow abroad, you mean? Yes, so it seems. Your stooped little Japanese friend, for example. You told me he was keeping well in Japan when I inquired the other day. Yes, that's right. He's an author now, happily working in Tokyo. So Professor Harebrain is safely in Germany now. He is. So, it appears our conversation has run dry. There was a 2-second silence, that's all. Well, in any event, if you'll excuse me now, I wouldn't like to detain you. I was wondering, Von Zykes, if you'd like, I'd be happy to advocate for you. You trust me, do you? Yes. I've heard you speak many times in court. I've seen how you treat people. So I'm quite sure that you would have never taken another one's life. It's just, my feelings can't be used as evidence in court, sadly. It's a very gracious offer. However, I trust no one. What? Not the police, not the judiciary, and not you Nipponese. But please, I have no intention of engaging your services. The chasm between us is too wide and too deep, it seems. I'd appreciate it if you don't visit again. Then neither of us will waste any more time. What if we got to serve as the prosecutor? That'd be pretty sick. Perhaps we need to dig a little deeper and find out more about Von Zykes and what happened to Gregson. We got a red wig on the ground. This really is an out-of-the-way part of London. I doubt many people find their way back down this street. So this dust-ridden rented room is where it happened then. So this is where poor Inspector Gregson lost his life. Yes, and the police are already hard at work investigating, it seems. I don't see Sholmes anywhere. Perhaps his investigations have taken him elsewhere.
Oi! What do you think you're doing there? Everyone drawers has got to be taken right out so you can look underneath and all. I want the space above this ceiling checked, and don't forget to look inside the chimney stack. Blimey, ain't you lot never gone over an house looking for dough when the owners are out of town?
Gina's obviously got some unique investigative techniques.
Ah, so you've turned up at last. Mind you, I haven't been here long myself.
Hello again, Gina.
Sholmes only just left. You're lucky you missed that. He went prancing around in here, pointing at stuff and flicking that out of his and just scarpered.
Oh, he's finished investigating already, you mean?
Yeah, he didn't stop to say nothing to no one, not even me.
Gina, would you mind if we investigated too?
Listen, Odo. You're a lawyer, right?
Yeah. Why?
Well, you're not thinking of trying to help that Reaper bloke, are you?
Oh, poor Gina. She's never going to forget, is she? The trial will haunt her forever. Gina, if you don't mind me saying, if Von Zykes really is responsible for this crime, he will be duly and fairly judged in court.
I suppose you're right, yeah. Go on then, Oda, get investigating. I want to know the truth about what really happened.
Thank you, Gina. Alright. Oh, it's a photograph stand. I suppose it must be a picture of one of Inspector Gregson's family members. Ah. What's the matter? What did I skip? Your eyes are either about to pop out of your head. They are! Look! It's the woman. Why do I feel... I hate you. I hate you so much. We only met her this morning. Oh, it's Mrs. Vigil. Yes. This makes no sense. Why would there be a picture of Mrs. Vigil here? Maybe this is where Mr. Vigil's been coming when he was away for a few days. To be frank, I don't think I've ever been more stumped. Oh, I've definitely been more stumped. I'm sorry to say I have no idea either. Can we look at the back of it, or is it just the picture? Just the picture. Nothing. Alright. Chimney. An empty fireplace makes a room feel even colder. It's thick with dust, look. I think it would be fair to say it hasn't been used in a very long time. In other words, whoever lived in this room must have been extremely hardy in cold weather. Or nobody lived here at all and merely visited. I wouldn't like to say which is more likely. No, that's right. It's one or the other. No drawers? Alright. This looks like some sort of notice board. And it's absolutely covered in scraps of paper. Mr. Naruhodo, look. Are these all the people that have been killed by the Reaper? This, you mean, it's an autopsy report, isn't it? And these are case notes here, and details of prison inmates. Yes, in fact, they're all sort of documents that only a detective would normally acquire. What on earth went on in this room? Some old newspaper cuttings. Ah, and this one here. Yes, the advertisement, you mean? The Red-Headed League. But why? What's that doing here? Whoever occupied this room was clearly interested in it. Oh, what's this? It would appear to be a little model policeman. It's rather charming, isn't it, in a way? Seeing as it's on the floor here, do you think it belonged to Gregson? It's a little hard to imagine Von Zykes playing with something like this. It's only about 8 centimeters tall. It could have fallen out of someone's pocket, I suppose. I think we should record it as evidence. Yes, I agree. It's rather delightful, after all. Nothing obviously wrong with it. The helmet appears to be a little worse for wear. I'm not convinced about the charming part, but yes, the head part looks like it's been fairly heavily manhandled. Almost as if somebody has enjoyed twisting it around and around for fun. Shall we try twisting it around and around too for fun? Ah, what's that? It appears to be some sort of key. But it's tiny. Though, it's tiny though, it couldn't be a key for a door, not at this size. What's it for, I wonder? This looks like some sort of key. Yes, it does. It's a very tiny and simple key. What's a little key doing inside a figurine of a policeman? And what's it for? There's a bit of a mystery, yes. Be going. This is presumably the murder weapon, then. Oh my, it's real, I suppose. I think so. Guns are so rare in Japan, I really know very little about them. There's one way to know for sure. Fire a shot. No! If I did that, I'd be looking for a skilled lawyer to represent me. Slightly safer just to ask someone who might know. Let's see. It's got a key ring on it, so that's pretty exciting. I suppose this must be the murder weapon. Oh my, it's real, I suppose. This is just the same thing. Okay. We can do nothing to examine it ourselves, I suppose, then. That's fair. Guns are dangerous. If you don't know shit, you shouldn't be looking at them. Or not touching them, anyway. Ever since we came in here, I can't take my eyes off this thing. Oh, funnily enough, neither can I. It's a hairpiece, isn't it? It is. It is! A bright red hairpiece. And I suppose the fact it's right next to where the body was found means we have to accept that Inspector Gregson wore wigs, does it? And in such a flame-colored red, too. Yes, it's a color we've come across very recently, isn't it? Exactly. This is a vital clue, I'm sure of it. I've always wondered what the underside of a hairpiece looks like. That doesn't surprise me at all, Mr. Naruhodo. You always want to see what lies beneath, don't you? What's that supposed to mean? I'm not sure that's quite how I'd put it. You must use lots of bird lime to keep it in place on your head. So it doesn't get blown off by a gust of wind, I presume. That might be a little inconvenient when you wanted to take it off again, don't you think? Yeah, usually you'd, like, fasten them. Alright. So I suppose this is where the victim... That's right. The rope is laid around the body to show exactly how it was found. Inspector Gregson himself was already being taken... has already been taken away. And would probably be under Scythe's scalpel by now, if not for what happened. From the shape of the rope, it would appear the inspector was curled up in a ball. Are you feeling alright, Mr. Naruhodo? You look like you've just seen a ghost. I know it's just a rope, but... well, it conjures up quite a terrifying image. Especially with the bloodstain next to it. Oh, I do understand. In some ways, what we picture in our minds can be even worse than reality. Sasato-san is so strong, though. She's taken this far better than I am. The top of one of the candles in this candle holder has been completely blown off. Yes, there's wax spattered on the wall behind. Look. I suppose if a bullet had hit it... It does seem likely that the bullet hit the candle, having first passed through the inspector. It's a little high, isn't it? Now the wax on the wall looks like blood to me. No, I guess it is. No, it's a little high. I guess it depends on where he got shot. But from that, like, to get that shot? No, there's no way he got shot all the way this high. The person would have had to have been, like, lower than him, right? Why is this one so strange compared to the others? These are way taller, or way shorter than this one was. Ah, there are some black marks here. Look, I guess it could have just burned down faster than this, but it just seems kind of weird that it's like that much taller. They look like some sort of scorch marks. So perhaps a bullet struck the candle here, do you think? It only hit this candle is cracked in half, it seems. Yes, I think you might be right. Firearms are rarely used by criminals in Japan, so I'm afraid I'm not particularly knowledgeable about them. Okay. You boys got anything to say? Excuse me.
If you're looking down on us from the great beyond, Inspector, don't worry. We'll look after the yard.
I've interrupted some deep thoughts. Excuse me?
Sorry, sir. Can't see your things, sir. Too many tears, sir.
Right. Excuse me.
Oh, Inspector. Oh, sir.
Poor man. Everybody's taking it pretty badly. Alright, nothing else. Yeah, I should look at the windows. Somebody's very haphazardly nailed those boards over the broken glass, haven't they? You couldn't even really call it a window anymore. Well, if you remember the window in Natsume's, that was totally blocked up with bricks. You could say... Well, this one does still let in some light, so you could say nothing more about it. I'm starting to feel even more sorry for Natsume now. Alright, let's talk to Gina then. Gina, what was Inspector Gregson doing here?
That's what I want to know. It's what, half a year since I got out of the clink. That's when I decided to give up me diving and become a detective instead.
Oh yes, Sholmes twisted the inspector's arm, didn't he?
Something like that, I think. Anyway, point is, I didn't really know much about the boss till then. But it turns out he's a bit of a legend at the yard.
Goodness, really? I assumed, really.
They say he managed to solve some really tricky case, just like that.
He did?
Yep, and ever since then, he started going on all sorts of investigations, but always on his own. No one else at the yard knows even what half of the cases he's working on are, apparently.
That's not how it's supposed to work, is it? So what was the legendary inspector doing? Oh god, what if it turns out like Gregson was the one killing people? No, I still think it must have been Strongheart or some shit. Strongheart's definitely up to no good.
I know he had a lot of respect for the Reaper and all. And look where that landed him.
Respect for the Reaper? In what way?
I heard him say as much.
I'll take my hat off to that fella, were his words. Oh no, that's suspicious. Not how the general public feels, is it? Most people are terrified of the Reaper.
Yeah, the boss said that's exactly why he respected the bloke.
I didn't realize Gregson held the Reaper in quite such high regard.
He said something else to me and all. That I didn't need to worry about the Reaper, cause he only goes after people what are bad. It did kinda set my mind at ease when he said that.
Right. What is this place then? Does anyone live here?
Apparently it's being rented by some cove called Hugh Bone.
Hugh Bone. Hugh Boone. Huge Bone. We'll just call him what I'm thinking. It's sort of a here today, gone tomorrow type name, isn't it?
Yeah, he's what we call an unidentified person. We haven't been able to get in touch with him.
I see. Well, judging from appearances, I'd say this place hasn't been lived in for a long time, if ever.
Right. All the lads from the yard piled down to get stuck into the investigation. But there's so little here, no one knew what to do with themselves.
I do wonder. Yes. Well, could it be that Huge Bone is in fact Inspector Gregson? I am leaning more towards Vigil. What? How could that be? Well, if he was investigating on his own, it's quite possible that he was in fact a secret office of his. I'd never even considered that. But like, Mrs. Vigil's in here, you know? Like, I suppose, whatever, I don't know.
Nice work, Suze. We're actually following a line of inquiry like that ourselves.
You are?
If you look around the room, you'll see there's a few things that hint at it.
We did. I see that's where the inspector was found, over there.
Yeah, that's right. Like I said, it was a single bullet what did him in. Apparently the bullet went right through him and struck the candle tree on the wall.
Ah yes, it's blown one of the candles apart.
And the gun used is there on the floor. It's the Reaper's in it, no denying that.
What, really? Of course.
Take it easy. I don't know what to do with myself when you stare at me with them big wide eyes. I'm only saying what I've heard. I don't know much about guns myself, but there's some bigwig lawman or whatever who said it. Why don't you ask him?
A bigwig, is it? Anyway,
Frenzo Street runs along under that window there. There were some street sellers just outside who heard the gunshot.
Oh, but I don't recall seeing anybody.
Yeah, they've all been taken down to the yard for questioning, that's why. We're talking about the yard's legendary inspector here, after all. They'll be getting a grilling.
Do you think we might be able to speak with those?
I doubt it. The lads at the yard will just want to know what you're snooping around for, and you'll be up for a grilling and all.
So we can't interview the witnesses. Like we have literally never been allowed to do that. Alright, let's see. Do you have any opinions about any of this evidence we found? Not about that, obviously. Mm-hmm. Is that gone? Mm-hmm. No opinions on any of this evidence, huh? Or that? Alright. Illuminating. Well, in that case, let's go and see the justice, because I'm assuming he's the bigwig.
You've made good time.
I took an express train back to London. I can hear Lord Strongheart, can you? Yes, it sounds as though he's talking to someone. Oh. Is everything in place? I had a private compartment on the train, so I could check all the paperwork. It's Kazuma-sama. Ah, your timing is impeccable. It is? No doubt you have heard the sickening news about the Reaper's latest devilry. Yes. I'm sure you don't believe it, of course, though. That Van Zykes could have done such a terrible thing. I believe only in the facts, and the facts in this case point to one thing. The unavoidable accusal of Van Zykes for this crime. We must bring charges against the Reaper for taking the life of our legendary detective. Oh no, surely not. It's truly a regrettable situation. Tomorrow, the Forensic Science Symposium finally begins. At the very least, though, we can show the world our justice system's swift and equitable processes. So does that mean the trial is tomorrow? Precisely. In fact, this is a fine opportunity for introductions. You're gonna be the prosecutor, I assume, then? Kazuma. Ah, but of course, you're already acquainted, aren't you? Mr. Asogi here will be present at tomorrow's proceedings, leading the prosecution. Wait, what? Kazuma? As I'm sure you're aware, he's a very capable practitioner of law. Kazuma-sama, a prosecutor? I can just imagine the fucking JoJo's characters hovering over him in the background. I'm sure you can imagine tomorrow's trials will be closely followed all over London. In fact, no. People all over the Empire will be watching closely to see how it unfolds. There's no salvation for anyone in a trial prosecuted by the Reaper, and now, the Reaper himself stands in the dock. Quite so. The public want answers about the Reaper. Answers about how and why those who escaped conviction subsequently died mysterious deaths. But Lord Van Zykes firmly denies any involvement. And there have been thorough investigations. That's certainly true, or it has been, at least, until now. No, tomorrow's trial will mark the start of a new chapter in our country's great judicial history. So, Kazuma will be prosecuting. That's right. But he's a defense lawyer. Accomplished young law practitioners cannot pick and choose their roles. And imagine what it will mean for the prosecution to know the strategies commonly employed by the defense. A devastating combination, wouldn't you agree? It's a little weird how there's never been a game where you actually play as a prosecutor. I mean, there's the investigation games where you play as Edgeworth, but like, there's no like mainline game where you're the prosecutor. It's a little weird. I have no doubt at all that Kazuma will be razor sharp as a prosecutor. But why Kazuma-sama? There are surely many other highly skilled prosecutors. It was a personal request. I asked to be assigned to the trial. You asked for this? But why? It'll all become clear tomorrow. I'm guessing you intend to stand for the defense, don't you? Although, the Reaper appears to be turning down all offers of representation. I'm surprised such a personal request would have been upheld. It seems unprecedented, quite exceptional in fact. You are quite right, Miss Mikotoba. Tomorrow's trial will be unprecedented and exceptional in every way. Ah, After all, the accused is one of Britain's greatest prosecutors, the pride of the Empire. It would be unwise to give the public a reason to perceive it as the judiciary closing ranks. So that's why you're happy to let a foreigner handle it. Ryunosuke, let's see how your skills have been honed after practicing law in this land for so many months. Kazuma, I don't understand why you're being so hostile now. This isn't gonna end well, my friend.
We're gonna beat that ass, yeah!
Ah yes, we noticed there was a gun at the scene of Gregson's death. Do you know if it belonged to Van Zykes? That would be a question for the lead detective investigating the scene. Well, the thing is, she wasn't sure, so she told me to ask somebody higher up who might know. That's right, be direct. It's certainly a model that's issued to all personnel involved in law enforcement, yes. Which includes prosecutors, as I'm sure you can imagine. In that case, it actually might have belonged to the victim. No, Gregson had his gun on his person. What about Van Zykes? He claims it's currently not in his possession. What? According to his story, he lost it. In short, it's more than a little suspicious. But just because the gun in question is the same type is no proof it's actually his. No, of course not. Nevertheless, the situation is grave. Can we talk to Kazuma also? I'm sorry for all the worry I've caused you, but it'll be alright now. Has your memory completely returned? Yes, completely. I remember everything. Including what I was coming here to do. Right. Kazuma-sama, I can't tell you how happy I am you're alive and well like this. But how did you come to be here in London when you were suffering from amnesia? It was the voice. This past year, I've been hearing it in my head constantly, saying the same thing over and over. Go to London. That's where your destiny awaits. It was that voice that guided me here to London. I'm so sorry for what's happened. Anyway, my memory might have returned to me, but there's something that won't return to the way it was before. What do you mean? I'm a prosecutor now, so I'm sure our paths will cross again very soon. It doesn't look like we're going to glean much more here. Well, thank you very much, Lord Strongheart. Remember, tomorrow's trial will go down in our Empire's history. There's much you could learn from the public gallery. Sorry to have taken up so much of your time. We'll see ourselves out.
Hold it!
Before you go, Ryunosuke. What is it, Kazuma? I just wanted to thank you. Kazuma-sama? What? You took my determination to heart and brought it with you over the ocean in my stead. And you carried out my role to perfection. You always were intent on studying British law. It was your dream, and Mr. Narrow didn't want that to die with you. Yes, but I had another purpose for coming here. Oh, yeah, I imagined. I actually have a favor to ask. Which is, this trial I'll be prosecuting tomorrow. I'd like you to be there to see how it ends. Right in front of me, as the defense counsel. Why, what's all this about? I know you have what it takes. But Van Zykes would never put his fate in my hands. On the contrary, he recognizes your talent. He does. It's not easy to see behind the facade sometimes. Here, have a look at this. Look at this. Look, he's smiling. Oh, look how young he was. So innocent. Untainted at the time. And Gregson was so alive. That's Lord Van Zykes and Inspector Gregson. In a photograph that must have been taken some time ago. And who's the third person? I wonder. It was displayed very prominently in the detective's office. In Gregson's office? Yes. What I'm trying to say is, if you really think you can trust the Reaper, you might find that some straight talking makes him take a different view. Take it. I don't understand. Why are you giving me this? Just hurry, Ryunosuke. Visiting hours at the prison are almost over. What are you doing, Kazuma? Alright, thanks. Bye, dudes. Prison time. Van Zykes is still reading that letter. We've been gone quite some time, though. Either he's an incredibly slow reader, or it's an incredibly long letter. I might even be able to read English faster than he can. I was intending to ignore you entirely. But I can't turn deaf ears to such an insulting Nipponese. Oh, sorry, I didn't think you'd hear that. I had the case notes brought to me in secret. I was reading them to pass the time. Yes, we'd heard that your trial is set for tomorrow. Which is none of your business. So have you found a lawyer? How many times must I reiterate the same thing? This is nothing to do with you. In other words, no. We were just talking to Strongheart, and the prosecution for your trial has been decided. I'd expect nothing less, though I have no idea who it is. It's gonna be Kazuma. Asogi? That made the color drain. Not that he has much color in his face to begin with. Well then. It seems I'm going to have to engage in conversation with you again after all. "10 years ago, my older brother was the director of the prosecution at the time, was murdered. And the killer, as you know, was a visiting student from the Far East. Not a single day goes by when I don't curse the name Asogi. Genshin Asogi was Kazuma-sama's father. So what cruel twist of fate is this now, 10 years later? The man's son is to crucify me in some kangaroo court. I still don't understand why Strongheart apprenticed Kazuma to you. It's what he does. No doubt he knew of the young man's true identity from the outset. But what could he have been hoping to achieve? And let's not forget it was only 8 days ago that Kazuma recovered. Why would Strongheart assign this trial to somebody like that? Asogi. That name is the very epitome of my bane. The bane that is you Nipponese. Right. I'd only just been appointed as a prosecutor when it happened 10 years ago. My brother Clint, the director of prosecutions, was hunting down a mass murderer. The so-called professor. Assigned to the investigation as his partner was a certain visiting student dispatched from Scotland Yard. And that was Genshin Asogi? Exactly. I developed a deep respect for the man. He seemed noble-minded and chivalrous in the extreme to me. But none of us saw the true nature of the man. So I lost everything when it happened. My esteemed brother, the people I believed in, and any semblance of the right prevailing over wrong. Oh, how awful. To avenge my brother, I prosecuted Asogi's trial. It wouldn't ordinarily have been allowed, but I beleaguered the ascribed prosecutor until he consented. What do you mean by the ascribed prosecutor? The man in charge of the Professor case inquiry, Lord Mael Strongheart. Wait, what? Lord Strongheart? He was a very highly accomplished prosecutor. But he agreed to relinquish the trial to me and act as my advisor instead. Since that time, he's the one person to whom I've felt indebted. I'm sure he must have seen your zeal for the case and recognized your potential. Anyway, time passed, but then earlier this year, who should arrive in London but you? And, of all things, as a lawyer. I felt your animosity the first time I ever faced you. Your obvious, deep loathing of the Japanese. I kept telling myself it was all illogical. But for so many years that hatred had festered inside me, I could no longer control it. And I can understand why, now that I know the history. But in the same way that I've long felt the Nipponese to be the bane of my life, to Kazuma Asogi, I am the bane of his, the Reaper who sent his father to the gallows. He's looking for revenge, and he intends to take it in the court tomorrow. Gregson's transfer to the Paris Police Prefecture had finally been arranged for the coming month. But he'll never make it to France now. It's a tragedy. Oh yes, come to think of it, he did mention something about that. I wonder, does it happen often, being transferred internationally? It's the first time I've ever encountered it. Oh, the Paris police welcoming an English detective is almost inconceivable. I can't imagine what kind of magic Gregson must have worked to put that arrangement in place. And it sounds like that mystery has even the Reaper perplexed. I'm afraid to say that we were very ignorant about Gregson's standing. We hear that he was considered something of a legend. Again, it was 10 years ago that he first made a name for himself, by uncovering a decisive piece of evidence that exposed the professor's identity. If it wasn't for Gregson's singular approach to the case, the discovery would have never been made. What sort of approach? After my brother's life was taken, the inspector pushed for a full autopsy. Oh, 10 years ago? Why is that so surprising? Autopsy was considered a desecration of the body at the time, and rarely performed. And my brother was of course a noble. That made the idea of it even more unthinkable. But something Gregson had dug up in his investigations made him determine that it was necessary. His powerful conviction somehow influenced the House of Lords, and as a result, I could avenge my brother's death. So you must have great confidence in the inspector's abilities then. And it's even more inconceivable that you would have taken his life. I don't have confidence in anyone. Oh. And I'm sure Gregson felt the same way. I've no doubt he thought of me only as the ominous Reaper, just like the rest of London. What really went on between Van Zykes and Gregson? What was the true nature of their relationship? About the gun you used to shoot the inspector. Ah, yes. That's not mine. Really? Because common opinion seems to be it is. What do you expect me to say to that? Lord Streighard informs us you claim to have misplaced your firearm. As embarrassing as that is, I'm afraid it's true. When did you lose it? That, I don't know. People do always ask that question, but like, if you knew when you lost it, you'd probably be able to find it. Oh. I was issued with a revolver when I first became a prosecutor 10 years ago. I must have stowed it somewhere, I suppose. Or left it somewhere, perhaps. You have something in common with Lord Van Zykes after all, Mr. Naruhodo. A talent for misplacing things. No, this has nothing to do with me. Don't drag me into it. Don't make the mistake of associating me with this Nipponese. Oh dear, the rift is very wide, isn't it? So it's not decisive evidence, clearly, but it doesn't look good. Picture time. Lord Van Zykes, we came by this old photograph.
Where did you get that?
It was taken when I became a qualified prosecutor. It's almost unbelievable. I assumed it was long lost. Is the man on the left there? Yes, that's my brother, Clint. It had to be, really. Apparently this picture was prominently displayed in Gregson's office. He had a deep respect for you, you know. Were you aware of that?
Respect? That's nonsense.
No, we've heard someone attest to it very clearly. Inspector Gina Lestrade, no less. Well, maybe once, yes. There was a time things were very like that. We were brothers in arms, jovially discussing the future of justice and other such lofty subject matter. That was a nice glimpse of the past. I thank you. I feel as though I got a glimpse of the past then, too. There was a glimmer of light in his eyes, a brief twinkle. An insight into the true nature of this man known to all as the Stone-Cold Reaper of the Bailey. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, that's the first time he's ever used my name. I've lost all confidence in my country's justice system. I don't trust the police, the judiciary, or lawyers. But there's still one thing I'm willing to believe in. What's that? That which you see in the eyes of another across the courtroom. A simple determination to know the truth. Lord Van Zykes, from the very first time we clashed in the Bailey almost a year ago, I couldn't deny it, even though I dearly wished I could. Here is a loathsome Nipponese who has absolute integrity as a lawyer. There are only two other men I've known with that same look in their eyes. My brother, Clint, and the Genshin Asogi. The man he idolized and the man who betrayed his trust. When you showed me that photograph just now, it reminded me. You mean this photograph? What other photograph, dude? Back then, I was able to laugh. I was free of the shackles of mistrust that plague me now. I look to the future with hope. Since then, I've protected myself against betrayal by refusing to trust anyone. But at times, the mire into which I've sunk makes it almost impossible to breathe. I'm so sorry. So, Mr. Naruhodo, I want to believe in that look in your eyes. I need to believe in it. In tomorrow's trial, will you advocate for me? Of course I will. It would be an honor. We did it. I'm so pleased, Mr. Naruhodo. Then my life is in your hands. For Lord Van Zykes, that must have been an incredibly hard thing to ask, which is why I simply cannot let the man down. Tomorrow, in the Old Bailey, against my old friend, Kazuma. Fuck, dude. Why did it have to be Gregson?